Under the blinding flashes of cameras and the polished smiles on the red carpet, Dornan and Dakota Johnson always seemed effortlessly perfect. Two stars bound by more than just a movie. Every glance between them carried a spark that fans couldn't ignore. But behind those photographs that flooded social media, behind every elegant outfit and charming interview, there was a hidden story, one that never made it to the tabloids. Dakota Johnson had fallen for Jamie in a way few people ever suspected. Working side by side through the intensity of 50 Shades, she had seen parts of him that the public never would. The gentleness behind his discipline, the humor that surfaced only when the cameras stopped rolling. What began as chemistry on screen slowly turned into something deeper, something dangerous. Dakota, despite being the confident woman the world admired, found herself waiting for someone who couldn't fully step toward her. Jamie wasn't oblivious. He felt it too. That unspoken pull. The way their eyes lingered longer than they should have. But there was a wall that neither fame nor emotion could break: his family. The Dornans, rooted in traditional Irish values, had always imagined a quiet, grounded life for their son. A life far away from Hollywood's chaos and its unpredictable romances. They respected Dakota as an actress, yes, but as a potential partner? That was another story entirely. Whispers began to circle through the industry. Some insiders claimed Dakota had made subtle attempts to get closer to Jamie outside work, small gestures, quiet dinners, moments that might have led somewhere. Yet, each time she tried, the air seemed to grow colder. Jamie's family, especially his mother, held strong opinions about what kind of woman belonged beside him. To them, Dakota represented the very world they feared: open, daring, independent, and far too unpredictable. There was one evening, according to those close to them, when Dakota was supposed to attend a small family event in Belfast. It was meant to be informal, a dinner, laughter, introductions. But at the last minute, the invitation was quietly withdrawn. Jamie didn't explain much, only that it wasn't the right time. Dakota, ever the professional, smiled and said she understood. Yet, when she returned home that night, she couldn't shake the sting of rejection. For the first time, she realized her relationship with Jamie wasn't just about two people. It was about everyone around them too. As time passed, their connection grew more complicated. The world kept pairing them together, but real life kept tearing them apart. Dakota found herself facing invisible barriers: polite smiles that hid silent judgment, conversations that stopped when she entered the room. It wasn't hatred, exactly. It was something colder. Disapproval coated in courtesy. Jamie, caught between loyalty and longing, tried to shield her, but every attempt only deepened the tension at home. The emotional weight began to show. In interviews, Dakota often spoke about love in a tone that sounded wistful, almost tired. Sometimes, she once said, "You meet people who feel right, but the timing, or the world, just doesn't let it happen." Fans thought she was being poetic. Those who knew her better suspected otherwise. For Jamie, the situation was no easier. He adored his family, especially after losing his mother at a young age, and the thought of going against their wishes tore at him. He respected Dakota deeply, admired her courage and authenticity, but the more serious things became, the heavier the family pressure grew. Friends noticed his hesitation, the way he avoided questions about Dakota in interviews, the subtle tension behind his calm demeanor. The illusion of Hollywood's most elegant friendship continued, but the truth was, both of them were hurting. Dakota had reached a point where she wanted clarity, something real beyond the set lights and the gossip. Jamie, torn between two worlds, didn't know how to give it. The silence between them spoke louder than any headline. And so, the story that once began with laughter and red carpets slowly turned into quiet distance. The woman who once stood beside him in front of millions now found herself standing alone in the shadows of his world, admired by fans, but unaccepted by those who mattered most to him. Some say Dakota walked away because she finally understood. Love isn't just about two people when one of them belongs to a family that refuses to open its door. Others believe she still carries a piece of that connection, hidden behind her calm smile. One thing is certain. Behind all the glamour, there was heartbreak no camera ever captured. And the most painful part wasn't rejection itself, it was realizing that sometimes, love fails not because it isn't real, but because the world around it won't let it exist. The truth, as always, was far more complicated than what the public imagined. Dakota Johnson's story with Jamie Dornan was never about scandal or forbidden passion. It was about timing, expectation, and the quiet war between love and loyalty. After that night when the invitation was withdrawn, things between them changed. They still saw each other at events, on red carpets, and occasionally at private gatherings among mutual friends, but something invisible had fractured. Dakota began to sense that no matter how genuine her feelings were, she was walking into a story already written by someone else. A story where her name didn't fit the script. Jamie's world had always been split in two. On one side, there was Hollywood, the noise, the endless interviews, the constant speculation. On the other, there was home, the quiet streets of Northern Ireland, his wife Amelia, their children, and the values that grounded him long before fame ever found his name. His family believed in boundaries, in preserving the sanctity of marriage and reputation. They didn't want to see him dragged into rumors that might stain that image, even if those rumors had hearts beating behind them. For Dakota, this felt like a battle she couldn't win. She wasn't trying to steal Jamie away or break something sacred, she simply wanted honesty, acknowledgement of what they both felt. But in the eyes of his family, her mere presence threatened the peace they had built around him. They saw her as part of a chaotic world that had already taken enough from Jamie: privacy, normalcy, simplicity. To them, she represented the Hollywood storm he was supposed to survive, not invite into his personal life. There were moments when Jamie tried to bridge that gap. He defended Dakota quietly, spoke of her kindness and professionalism, how she had always respected boundaries. Yet, those conversations often ended with heavy silence. "She's not one of us," a family member once murmured, a sentence that cut deeper than any headline could. The more Jamie tried to please everyone, the more he lost pieces of himself. He wanted to protect his family's peace while also protecting Dakota's dignity. But love, when lived in secrecy and restraint, begins to wither. The tension became unbearable. Whispered phone calls, messages left unanswered, meetings that ended with long pauses instead of closure. Dakota, in her quiet strength, chose dignity over chaos. She stopped trying to prove her worth. She focused on her career, burying her pain beneath her performances and her signature calm smile. But inside, she carried the ache of what might have been, a story that could never unfold in public light. Meanwhile, Jamie grew distant from the world that once adored him for his mysterious charm. He still smiled for cameras, still played the roles the industry demanded, but something in his eyes had changed. During an interview promoting a new project, a journalist asked him about Dakota. He smiled faintly and said, "She'll always be someone I respect deeply. Some people come into your life and leave a mark that doesn't fade." It was the closest he had ever come to admitting the truth. The irony was cruel. Two people who once made millions believe in on-screen love couldn't hold onto it in real life. They had everything: fame, beauty, talent, except the freedom to choose each other. For Dakota, it wasn't about losing Jamie. It was about losing the belief that love could conquer the world around it. For Jamie, it was about realizing that family expectations can protect you, but they can also cage you. Years passed, and both of them moved forward. Dakota continued to shine, her name attached to strong, independent women who mirrored her resilience. Jamie embraced fatherhood, focusing on being present, grounded, loyal to the life he had built. Yet every once in a while, when fans caught glimpses of them exchanging polite smiles at an award ceremony, whispers reignited. Do they still feel it? Maybe they did. Maybe they always will. Some connections don't fade. They just learn how to exist quietly, without demanding to be seen. Behind the glamour, behind the laughter and headlines, was a love story that never fully bloomed. Not because it lacked passion or courage, but because the world surrounding them decided it wasn't meant to be. And perhaps that's the cruelest truth about love in the spotlight. It asks for authenticity, but demands perfection. Jamie Dornan and Dakota Johnson were never allowed to be imperfect together. She was too daring for his world, he was too bound to his roots for hers. Still, somewhere in that silent space between acceptance and regret, there remains a tenderness neither of them denied. A glance that lasted a second too long. A smile that carried an entire history. In another life, maybe Dakota would have been welcomed by his family, not as a co-star, not as a rumor, but as someone who truly understood him. In another life, Jamie might have chosen differently. But in this one, they chose grace over rebellion, silence over spectacle. Because sometimes love doesn't end with a fight or a goodbye. Sometimes it just fades quietly, behind the glamour.